Hello everyone. The year the Nintendo Switch was launched, a version of Farming Simulator was also released. Although it was a while ago, I remember it as a pretty entertaining simulator, a game where the player could create an agricultural empire by helping other farmers and successfully taking control of the surrounding fields. Most of it revolved around cultivating, sowing, harvesting and animal husbandry, and a lot has happened since then, and now 6 years later a new variant has seen the light of day, also for the Nintendo Switch. But Farming Simulator 2023 is different, and the question is it actually better than the game released in 2017? In this review, we check out Farming Simulator 2023. We ask ourselves, what's new this time? Where is the entertainment value? And is this a version that takes the farming-based games in an interesting new direction? And of course, is it worth the money? Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. So, the aim of the game is to create an agricultural empire. This can be done in 3 different ways. Either by owning as much land as possible, where you then sow, cultivate and harvest your fields, or build an economy based on animal husbandry. Or the third way, where you cut down trees, sell them and turn them into furniture. But before we go into detail about the gameplay itself, it is relevant to discuss the prerequisites. There are 2 maps to choose from, Amberstone and Newbrun. They are quite similar, although Newbrun has a small town and a larger river with bridges. Amberstone is more mountainous. No matter which map you choose, it feels like they take place at similar latitudes. There is no desert map or anything like that. It feels very North American and Northern European. A new feature is seasonal farming. This basically means that seasons have been implemented in the game. Seasons can play an important role in how much grain you get from a harvest. If you harvest when it's raining or snowing, the harvest will be smaller, which affects your finances negatively. But there are ways around this. By sleeping in your house, you can simply wait for better weather. Yeah, it's kinda ridiculous, but every time you sleep, a whole month passes. In this way, you can skip the whole winter and become more active in spring and summer when the weather is generally better. And since you can manipulate the time, it's just a matter of looking at the weather forecast and then playing in real time. In this way, bad weather is nothing to worry about. So let's go through the main gameplay of the game. But first and most classic is of course working out in the fields. Here you can harvest the most typical crops such as wheat, barley and oat. But there is also the possibility to work with, for example, potatoes, sunflowers, olives and grapes. In fact, this can be quite complicated as different crops require different machines. If you choose to sow wheat, a cultivator, a seeder, a combine harvester and a trailer are enough to get the job done. It can also be an advantage to use a sprayer to keep all the weeds away. But if you invest in grass, completely different tools are needed. First you have to sow the grass, then cut it with a mower, which should be followed up by using a windrower to arrange the grass in rows, and finally collect the grass in a separate cart. As you might notice, it can easily become very messy if you invest in many types of crops at the same time. In addition, it can drastically affect the economy negatively if you are unplanned. It may be wise to always check which machines are suitable for each crop. It is obviously stupid to start planting potatoes if you cannot afford to buy new machinery. And the fact is that many vehicles and machines are quite expensive. You need about $500,000 to be able to work with potatoes, and new tractors can cost about $400,000. And even if you manipulate time and can harvest constantly, it's my opinion that you have to put in a lot of time before you have made large sums of money. Let's say you're rewarded with $15,000 for a completed field. It goes without saying that it takes a while to reach $500,000. A lot of work and time is required. But there is a feature in the game that makes all work easier, namely hiring workers. For example, they can take care of your field so you don't have to do everything yourself. It's hugely time consuming to harvest all the fields manually, but by automating you will be done within a reasonable time. But the AI gives a mixed impression. The hired workers are certainly accurate. They sow, cultivate and harvest the fields with good precision, but they can also be clumsy. For example, they don't always know how to act if they approach an object that is close to a field. The workers can then get stuck. The same applies if the vehicles are too close to each other. They can then form a pile that no one can get out of. Then you have to manually correct all vehicles and create safe paths for each individual vehicle. The other way to earn money is through animal husbandry. We are of course talking about the animals that are typical on a farm, for example cows, pigs, chickens or sheep, but different animals have different requirements, especially when it comes to food. Chickens prefer to eat wheat and barley, while sheep prefer grass and hay. This means that animal husbandry basically goes hand in hand with producing food. So for example, if you want to make money from sheep, harvesting grass can be an advantage. This again means that you must have the special machinery required to handle the grass, but what the animals produce can then be sold, so this can be seen as an alternative way to make money. The third way to create an economy is to cut down and sell trees, but this is not for the novice. You need a lot of capital to be able to buy the necessary vehicles. We're talking about $800,000. And when you start a new game, you have access to $100,000. So it's out of the question to start with forestry. But you need 3 machines. One who cuts down trees, one who collects the logs, and the last one who removes the tree stumps. The wood can then be sold as it is, or it can be made into furniture. Worth noting is that this activity can be seen as an alternative to other chores. I think the entertainment value is relatively low, because it's both slow and repetitive, but at the same time it's an alternative to everything else you do, so maybe you should see it as a whole. That is to say, the different ways of playing complement each other, taking care of animals, harvesting fields and cutting down trees. An additional way to make money is to utilize the existing production chains. Based on what you collect, you can earn extra money. For example, different types of grain can be used to bake bread. The bread can then be sold at a good price, or you can produce wool that is used to create cloth. There are many more chains that may be worth using if you want to make more money, and the production chains are basically automated as long as you supply each factory with materials. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the goal of the game is to create an agricultural empire, but I would argue that much of the game's entertainment value lies in the process itself, that you successfully buy better vehicles and more machines, and there is a plethora of different vehicles in the game. In true realist spirit, we are talking about brands that farmers use in real life. For example, New Holland, Fendt, John Deere and Claas. At first you have access to weaker vehicles with less power. But as the money rolls in, you can buy vehicles that can pull the heavy machinery, and it's these goals that I find entertaining, that you gradually acquire enough money to be able to upgrade your equipment. Farming Simulator 2023 is a game that I think can suit those who appreciate the previous games in the series. There are some changes that make the whole thing more interesting. It's nothing spectacular, but there are definitely differences compared to previous editions. Above all, I want to highlight the different ways of playing. There would have been the risk of getting tired if you had only sown and harvested fields, but now there are some good alternatives in that you can deal with animal husbandry and felling trees. I would also say that this is a game that works well for those who have never played a farming simulator before. Firstly, there is a simple introduction at the beginning of the game, as well as a manual that helps you with most of what you need to know, so you can start very simply, and later do more and more complicated things. In addition, many moments in the game are automated, so compared to previous releases this sometimes feels simplified. Everything from the AI workers to vehicles and machines auto-connecting. You don't have to do things manually, but the game isn't perfect. As I mentioned before, the AI workers sometimes behave strangely and sometimes need to be corrected. Also, I have discovered a couple of strange things. Every time you leave the game, it crashes. Luckily, it doesn't affect anything. It's just weird. Also, some trailers seem to be bugged. When I press the A button to use the AI worker, I automatically go to the map instead. That's also weird. So there are some small things that raise some question marks, but generally everything works great. In terms of performance, it generally feels like most things flows well. It's an open world where the frame rate feels good most of the time. However, it's clear that certain objects, for example bushes, pop in a little now and then. I would also like to add that compared to the first game that came to Nintendo Switch, there is now only one difficulty level. You start with $100,000, and then it's up to you to create a sustainable economy. And if it's the case that you have played the previous version of this game, this may not feel so revolutionary. Maybe it's not even a necessary addition to your game library. It's not a bad game by any means, but if you're used to older games in the series, you probably won't be too surprised by this version. And the price is set at $45 in Nintendo's eShop, which is quite a lot of money in my opinion, but I would argue that it depends on where you come from. If you have never played this type of game before, then maybe it's worth a purchase. If you are a seasoned farm player, well, you can buy it to check out the new changes and test the new maps, but I doubt you will be surprised. We have seen a lot of this before. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a good day, see ya!